Welcome back to another episode of Season 5 of the RAG podcast. As you guys know by now, this is the number one podcast across the recruitment sector globally. And we've always been on a mission to help recruitment agencies grow by interviewing founders and telling their stories of success from startup all the way to scale up and exit. Well, this season we're a little bit different. How do you, as a recruitment leader and founder, maintain your family and friendships whilst being the best person at work? How do you stay physically fit mentally and emotionally? And how do you find time for yourself in the madness? How do you find time for self-interest, for hobbies, and self-improvement? Well, to help you with this, I'm going to be interviewing someone every single week that can demonstrate experience in one or more of these areas. So I'm going to talk to recruitment founders and also some experts from outside the industry who can deep dive into things like relationships and health and well-being. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy today's show. Hello and good morning. It is morning. It is, what day are we on today? It's not, it is literally I've been in a crazy one. It's the 3rd of March. I'm back. I've just got back from Dubai. You might can tell if you're watching live or back. I've got a nice little bronze tan off my couple of week holiday. I had a week's break from the podcast last week, but we are back. And I've been up since 3:30 this morning. It's 11 o'clock, so it feels like it's evening time to me. I have a bit of jet lag, but I'm excited. I'm always excited for this show, but today I'm super excited. I'm joined by Stuart White, and Stuart is the co-founder of a business called Provide, a specialist recruitment company, 21 years old, currently going through an acquisition with a business called the TXM Group, which is super exciting. And Stuart's moved. What I find really interesting about Stuart's journey is he's gone from your classic kind of recruitment owner story to now running their RPO division. He's director of strategic partnerships. So he's got a target on his head and he's got all these different things going on. And yeah, I think it's just an incredible story of growth, exit planning, all sorts that, every recruitment owner in the market seems to be chasing. Right, let's get into today's episode. And I'm going to bring Stuart inside. Welcome to the RAG podcast, Stuart.
Cheers, Sean. Yeah, thanks for the intro. That was very complimentary of you.
Did I do it justice?
I think so. Maybe we'll see in a minute, I suppose, won't we?
Well, I always try. But my first question, as always, will be: tell us about yourself. Give us a better overview, not of your whole story, because we're going to do that, but just how would you describe who you are and your role today?
Okay, keeping it really simple. So I think you've alluded to the fact that I lead our RPO managed service division, but there's just no ivory towers in the role that I do. I am still very hands-on as a recruitment consultant. So I have an allocated target on a monthly basis and a quarterly basis. I've got targets to hit, and I've got clients to work with, and I'm still filling key positions with some of the clients that we're working with to facilitate better working relationships. So yeah, I'm still very hands-on as a recruiter first and foremost, business owner secondary.
Wow. And tell us just how big is Provide as an organization?
So at the moment, in terms of headcount, we're probably at one of the lowest headcounts post-COVID, but we're sitting around 23, 24 people at the moment. We've been into the 40s. I can talk to you a bit about that at a later stage. But turnover-wise, we're sitting around 11 million turnover at the moment. So, yeah. Okay.
And we're going to get into it, but you're going to become part of a much bigger business, aren't you, TXM?
Yeah, which is what I am certainly really excited about, because for us, this is then a new chapter, and it's a chapter we've all been striving for.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll get into all that, but let's go back. So 21 years in the game. Tell us, what were you doing before you started Provide? What was the journey? A really high level. What was the journey to get?
I think it's textbook story. I went to university. I think my parents convinced me that if I didn't go to higher education, I'd just be a dropout and a failure. So I did. I was into sport. I was a competitive swimmer, and it was quite serious. So I ended up going to Loughborough, studied German and economics, and ended up then thinking that I was going to be some high-flying investment banker.
Teacher.
Well, yeah, maybe I should have done that. Yeah, no. So went into banking, got a job with Morgan Stanley for my year out.
I looked at that on you.
Yeah, I lived in Frankfurt for a year. That was brilliant. That's how you really learn the language when you're living in a country, right? And then after that, graduated and managed to get a job with Merrill Lynch. And then I went out to New York for a year, and that was probably, well, that was an amazing time, right? I was 20, and I had a fully expensed apartment right by the Hudson River, and it was brilliant. And loved New York.
What were you doing? What was your actual job? Investment banking?
Yeah, so we were on a graduate rotation program. So basically the idea was that they rotated us across a number of areas: front office, back office, ops, tech. And when we went out to New York, with the first 6 months, pretty much was all to do with front office trading. And the most important thing was passing a thing called the Series 7 exam, which is basically the exam that traders have to pass to trade on the New York Stock Exchange. Hardest thing I've ever done. I failed it the first time. I failed it by 2%. It's a 3.5 hour multiple choice test. Passed it the second time round. Came back to London. Started working on the rotational program, and finished in the tech area. So I basically chose to go across technology. So this was technology that's supporting the front office.
Yeah.
Bit of a geek, bit of a closet geek. Loved all that stuff. Really liked the people, and decided that's where I wanted to be. And it was at that point that I realized, actually, deep down, maybe this wasn't the right career. And at that point, we were doing a thing called the Y2K project.
Right.
And this was all about and I'm sure some listeners will have no idea what this was about.
Well, I think we know what Y2K means, right? I hope people.
Yeah, year 2000, right? But the point was, from a technology standpoint, everybody was up in arms thinking, as soon as these clocks turn to 2000, the world's going to end.
Yeah.
So it basically created this environment where, people were being paid ridiculous day rates to work on all these big legacy systems to ensure that when it did, that things wouldn't collapse, especially over banking space. And I got to meet some really interesting people. And one of the guys that I met was talking about setting up his own recruitment business, and I didn't even know what it was. He said, "Look, I've got this idea, and you seem like someone who could get on well with people. Do you want to join me?" And I turned him down initially, but I had my own idea about graduate recruitment and my experience as a graduate, and how basically, pretty crap it was, to be honest. The milk rounds that we saw at our university were really good, free fish and chip suppers, endless amounts of beer and but we were only seeing the big players, the BTs, the Ciscos, the banks.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see something different, and I never did. I'm really grateful for the fact that I met the team at Merrill's, because then I got my opportunity to get into banking. But that sort of jaded me a little bit, and it sort of left me thinking, why don't we disrupt this space? Because it's just a bit dusty. It's only the big players that can get onto campus. What about the small to medium sized business, especially the tech businesses that aren't being represented? And then, so over a few beers and a few drunken conversations, I sort of spilled out this idea. And they said, well, look, I'll tell you what, why don't come on board and we'll give you a slice of the cake, and you run the graduate recruitment piece, and we'll see where we go from there. And that's then how I got into recruitment, because that's really sort of where it started. And it was graduate recruitment initially.
So you'd never actually worked in recruitment; you just worked in the industry, and then had the other guy worked in recruitment?
No, he was a Y2K contractor. Yeah.
So neither of you knew what you were doing, really?
No, we knew that there was a market. Yeah. He's got a lot of contacts. He was sort of looking at, and then we partnered up with somebody who did have experience. So another director came on board from Hayes, and he set the framework up. And my job was to go out basically and start talking to universities, heads of departments. We were going after the tech space. So the concept was really simple. Talk to the top, and I can say this because at the time it was the top 15 to 20 universities for computer science, software engineering, electronic engineering. Yeah. Get in bed with the heads of departments, do a deal with them and say, well, look, if we take the donkey work off your finalists' shoulders and give them an opportunity to see companies they'd never dreamed of seeing, to work with, take that sort of the administrative side off their hands and let them get on to secure the best degree classification that they can secure. All we need in return is give us 30 minutes bolted on at the back end of a compulsory lecture where 300-400 students are, and we'll do the pitch. And then on the client side, it was an easy sell. Well, I'm going to give you access to these highly talented graduates that will be yours exclusively over a period of time, which will give you the opportunity to put you on a pedestal above the Ciscos and the BTs who just invite people to come. We literally turned up with a projector, a laptop, and gate crashed a compulsory lecture and put on this razzmatazz presentation.
And it worked.
And it worked, yeah. I mean, and it was really well timed because in parallel to Y2K, we had the whole new era of the .com explosion.
Yeah.
So, and we were in London at the time, and I remember, in fact, I was just thinking about this beforehand. I remember sitting in cafes and in Farringdon, and on one table you'd have Jamie Oliver, who was talking about his cooking app, and then is it Michael Fish, the weather reporter, talking about this weather app that they were going to do. And you could actually, wouldn't it be great if we could have this app on your phone where it'll tell you what the weather is. I mean, okay, we've come a long way since, right?
Yeah.
But these tech companies were just spinning out from nowhere, and they were all looking for, if I'm honest, cheap resource, but talented resource. So that was graduate recruitment. So so we had the best of both worlds. Had a perfect storm. We had good supply because we could get hold of really talented grads, and also good, strong demand. Yeah, exactly. And then the thing took off. It just took off. It was hard work. It took off. We had 2 years of doing exceptionally well. We signed some major deals. I mean, we secured a massive partnership with Arm in Cambridge. They were only in the hundreds at the time, but we ran all of their graduate recruitment, a big retainer deal. I remember actually, because they paid us with a check, and we photocopied it and then framed it in the office.
What was that worth?
Over 100K.
Yeah.
And two guys who, I was 23, 24. My business partner at the time, Dan Brazier, was 20.
Right.
I mean, and that's how this thing started. But, and there's always a but, right? What goes up comes down. So we all know that the .com thing just crashed and the market fell through. And as quickly as basically we were recruiting, we were having to lay people off. We had a small team back in Milton Keynes, and unfortunately the market just got pulled from underneath us.
Yeah.
And it was hard work. I mean, these are smaller margins, high volume. We had to do the milk rounds twice a year. So we had to go up and register candidates. Then we'd go up another second time and interview everybody. It was hard graft, but it was brilliant fun. I mean, it was great.
So how many years were you talking with that rise and fall?
So that was literally, so it was 2002, officially 2002 to about 2004.
Right.
And at that point, a friend of mine from school was working for Hayes IT. And, he was the guy that turned up to the pub if ever there was a social. I'd come back from uni, driving the fastest car, brand new, already had a house. And he was this recruiter, which at the time I didn't take any notes of, right? I was going to be an investment banker. I was taking on the world. But he seemed to have bigger, faster and better things than I did. And anyway, good pal of mine. He had a lot of tech recruitment experience. So he came on board basically just to rent some space in our office at the time. And he was like, lads, I don't know what you're doing, but you should just come on board with me and we'll start working the mid-senior space in technology. You've got a good grasp of how you deal with people. I reckon we can do this. And then that's when we officially then launched Provide as a contingency perm contract recruitment business.
In not the graduate market anymore.
It came out the grad market, yeah. Right, so of course we're still doing graduate recruitment. It was always complementary to everything we did, but that's when we started going after the bigger ticket stuff. And
was that Y2K contractor still involved? The guy?
No. So basically, he ended up quitting. So he went back into contracting because really he felt that actually he was better placed there, and he was. And him and I are still in contact. He's a good friend of mine. So he came out of the business, and then we took a fourth director in who worked for Computer People. He was a contract recruiter. So we had myself, a perm recruiter, a contract recruiter, and an MD. Right. And then we basically we relocated back to my business partner's bedroom. So 4 of us worked in a bedroom.
No way.
And we built the thing from the ground up. Yeah. We worked in the back of a bedroom, and my business partner's mum used to come in at 11 o'clock, because that's the time we do it, with tea and coffee for us all. Breaks at 1, breaks at 4, and then finish at about 8 o'clock at night. And that's how it started.
It sounds grim, I'll be honest. I'm sure it was. Looking back, you'll have that rose-tinted glasses.
It was brilliant, Sean. I wouldn't change it for the world. I remember we did our first £20,000 month, and the four of us. It was on a Thursday afternoon. The placement was made. We'd hit £20,000, and we shut up shop. We booked flights to Prague, and we went to Prague for the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, and I tell that, and I'm proud of that because that's sort of why we got into it, and then why we carried on. It was great fun. I mean, don't get me wrong, we have helping companies scale and all of that, and I'll talk about that later. But when you're four young individuals who are just take on the world mode, those
we all like relatively carefree, mid-20s, like.
Yeah, one of us had just married.
Yeah.
The other, you know, the three of us were single or in very early relationships, and the world was our oyster.
Incredible time. It's an incredible time. When you look back, it's an incredible time of your life, that, isn't it? Where, like,
oh yeah, and and I'm proud of it, you know, and they're great stories to tell our trainees who are, you know, our trainees rock up now to provide, and everything's there for them. They've got L&D, they've got everything, and you know, I talk about the back of a bedroom, and I had a database of 2,000 clients, and I used to just call them every day, getting more no's than yeses, and in the end, someone would bite, and that was how I did BD.
Fair. So what happened after that then? So you got the bedroom going.
So we got the bedroom going.
How did the business evolve after that?
We got the bedroom going, and then and basically, so fortunately, our MD's family had just sold a big business for tens of millions of pounds, and they invested in us initially, but that was the only investment we got. We got given a chunk of money, and we were told, right, you've got pretty much 12 months run rate, you've got to make this work. So we literally worked all hours God sent us. As I said, a lot of it was very much perm focused, but it just built up and built up. And then we got to a place 18 months in where we'd smashed our targets and thought, actually, we've got something here. Why don't we think about actually scaling the business? And then we actually decided to acquire an office, not rent, but we decided to save for 12 months a deposit to buy basically an office in Milton Keynes, a 2-story office.
Why buy one? What was because it was an asset? Or?
Yeah, at the time it was an asset. Biggest mistake we made. There was whole tax implications when we came to sell it, and again, but at the time we were also high flying property developers. What we were thinking of doing was actually each time, you know, when we've had good months and with the profit that we've got on a yearly basis, we won't draw dividends. We'll go and buy property. What we didn't realize was, from a taxation perspective, it's just a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare with employees, and we had to unravel all of that. But we stopped as quickly as we started. So we did actually buy our first office in Milton Keynes. And that was probably a 30-person office at the time. And that was that's an amazing milestone. You rock up from a bedroom to this brand new purpose-built office for 30 people over 2 floors. And then, of course, you're in a different zone then. It's like, it's not about, you know, we've done £20,000. Let's shut up shop. We've got to go to Prague. It's right. We've got to scale now. We've actually got to bring people in. How on earth are we going to do that? We're good recruiters for our clients. How are we going to do it for ourselves? And that was then the next part of our journey, which is how do we actually build.
How did you find that migration into leadership of others?
Tough, I think, because I think the biggest bucket of cold water that you get, you get a bucket of cold water thrown on you in the realization that actually people you're bringing into the business are not as dialed in as you are. You know, they're employees, they're not founders, and there is a noticeable difference. And how do you drive motivation in your staff as much as you've got motivation to try and keep the lights on and keep everybody fed? You know, and I think it was a case of, for me, well, I'm happy to do 14-hour days. Why isn't everyone else doing it? You know, surely they're as motivated as I am to earn great money. Yeah, but it's different. And we know that now, and there are different drivers for different people. So yeah, that was a real turning point for us, which is 4 of us all working to the greater good is one thing. When you start to go to, you know, the first banding for us was getting to 10 people. That was actually quite easy. Bringing in 10 people was actually quite easy. It was because we had a very current business. There were some established IT recruitment companies in Milton Keynes, but they were a bit old hat. We were the new kids on the block. We were trying to do things differently. We were very thorough with how we put management process in, training for our team. and we were winning people left, right, and center. So the first wave of growth was dead easy for us. And actually probably the most enjoyable bit. That sort of up to 10 people they were good times.
And what happened after that?
So that's when it gets really interesting, because that's when we made a decision quite early on in our development that we just didn't want to be this lifestyle business. I'm really proud of that. Not that a lifestyle business has any negative connotations, because don't get me wrong, there are moments where I want to pull the parachute and just have a lifestyle business, right? And I'm sure this resonates well with other individuals out there. But that was a turning point for us, because we made the decision that actually wanted to grow this thing out. And I remember we took a weekend out. We went and did this big planning weekend. There was, again, the four of us. And our MD at the time was very much runs everything off a spreadsheet. So he was like, okay, so if one person can do X, it's really simple, right? 100 people can do Y. Let's just get 100 people on board. This is not, there won't be any barriers to entry. And of course, we went from one extreme to the other. We went in to take on the world mode. We wanted a 100-person company. We wanted to scale this thing. We wanted to revolutionize recruitment. We even were, we were talking about, okay, why don't we start billing clients differently? Well, let's, this whole contingency fee-based thing, let's just get rid of that. Let's start billing people by the hour, which, why we're the only trade that doesn't do it. So we even tried going down that road. We were taking everything on. And of course, it didn't work out. We didn't become the 100-person company. And as quick as we started, we realized that maybe we'd have,
what was the biggest, challenge with that? Tell us what stopped you from...
Well, I think two things. Hiring, the volume of people that were right for our business. That was a constraint. Our headquarters were in Milton Keynes, not in London. So we didn't have critical mass. In London, and I've got experience of recruiting in London. I set a business up in London. London, it's the opposite. You've got lots of great people, but you've also got lots of great recruitment businesses that also headhunt from you. So that's your challenge, was retaining staff in London. Whereas in Milton Keynes, it's different. It's trying to find the critical mass and good people that you can bring into that business was the challenge. And then when you've got them, training them effectively, scaling the business effectively, and retaining them as well. So then suddenly this whole thing starts to go into a new direction. And to be honest, Sean, that's an area that we made a decision that I wasn't going to focus on, because we made the right decision then, and which was I as a founder have still got to lead from the front, because as soon as I come off the tools, we didn't have many senior recruiters in the business at the time that people could look up to, aspire to, and also
what were the other three founders doing?
Well, the MD basically was strategic. One of the other directors was more around the people side. And then myself and the Hayes IT director, we were on the coalface,
right,
recruiting. So, and that was a great decision, because for us then, it's sort of a self-managed business. You lead from the front, and
so would you let the hiring and training and all the people ops bit be the other guys do, and you were outwardly facing?
Yeah, and that's just in my makeup. I'd sit in management meetings, and I'd be. You could just see me glaze over. I wanted to get on. Being with the clients, doing placements, deals is the bit that I really love, and I still love it. I've got the floor here behind me. I sit out there. I don't sit in my own office.
No.
That's the bit I love, and I think that's the bit we really did well on capitalizing. And there is a part in our history where I came off the tools, and that's where things actually started going wrong.
So when was that? What year was that?
2015, 2016. And the reason
that's well after this bit then, isn't it?
That's well after this bit. Yeah. So
you got, obviously starting the .com boom, then where were you then in going into the financial crash? So 2008, 2009.
Yeah. So that was a poignant time. So we grew the business rapidly. So we got, I think the highest headcount in Milton Keynes was in the 30s, and and we're in that place where we couldn't put a foot wrong. I remember our accounts team having to hire another administrator because they were struggling to get the volume of invoices out. We were a proven perm business, but we knew we had to move into contract recruitment, because there's no real value. That's not fair to say. There is value in perm recruitment, but if you are thinking about some sort of event at the end, it's the contract numbers that count. And we were schooled in that. We had a lot of people tell us that. So we went after contract recruitment, and Our administration team couldn't keep up. We were doing exceptionally well. I mean, it was a good 2 years where I remember we just couldn't put a foot wrong. And but unfortunately, as directors, we were all growing up, and some of us were growing up in different directions. And internally, we didn't see eye to eye on a number of key aspects of the business. And then we made a decision actually to split the business. And the Hayes IT director, he left. So we bought him out. He decided to go on and do his own thing. I took the initiative to go down to London. So I wanted to take our brand into London and build a secondary recruitment business going specifically after tech into banking.
It's no secret that recruiters are always notoriously time poor, and the huge demanding goals that we all put upon ourselves to be successful. But today's sponsor, Talent Ticker, have specifically designed or were designed to help recruiters get ahead of their, the most time-intensive tasks like sourcing, prospecting, and they do that by giving you really powerful predictive analytics, a database of candidates with more than 600 million profiles, and integrations with your classic recruitment tools. So they call themselves the Bloomberg of recruitment, and they're able to give you real-time data around companies that are growing, merging, going through IPO, all the different things that are going to predict hiring behavior, as well as source candidates that perhaps are not even on other platforms. Any recruiter who uses this tool will be calling the right person at the right time for the right reason, which is just, what we all need. So if you're interested, request a demo at talentticker.ai. Mention Hoxo for a free personalized lead list of candidates or hiring managers of your choice. The information and link will be in the chat, both on this LinkedIn Live, but also attached to the podcast. So I'll have a little scroll and read as well.
My philosophy was, well, not philosophy, but the analogy was, well, come on, it's London, right? There's thousands of good recruiters in there. This shouldn't be difficult. We've got a good brand. We're progressive. Let's headhunt a couple of key people who can lead that banking space for us, and we'll scale around them like we've done in Milton Keynes, but on a larger scale. But we didn't do it with money. I had a £30,000 overdraft with NatWest as my cushion. We were funding it through the MK business, but it was done on a shoestring. So I took one of my best recruitment consultants at the time with me. We had a 2-person office in Holborn, and then we went again and we scaled it again.
Yeah.
And that's where I then really cut my teeth as a business leader and as an MD, because typically that's what I was doing. I was a managing director of that business. I was responsible for everything, but I still had my day job because it was my responsibility to build out the client base. And we headhunted a very proven tech into banking recruiter, well known on the circuit, a real character. And he led that area. I led the technology area. And again, it was a great success. We grew the business within 18 months to 20 people. We had exclusive partnerships with 4, maybe 5 of the top investment banks.
Right.
We had a really good team of people, predominantly graduate recruiters that we trained ourselves, because we'd had a lot of bad experiences with senior recruiters, just not working out. And if I'm honest, I just wasn't cut out to deal with people's baggage. Yeah. And I'm sure you've heard these stories, Sean, but we've all got baggage, right? Recruiters have. But some of the stories I could tell you about some of the things that happened to us in London.
Go on, tell us something. Give us one story.
Okay, so a senior recruitment consultant who came with very proven banking experience faked his own mother's death.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
shouldn't laugh, boys.
No, faked his own mother's death.
What though? To get out of what?
Well, he'd written a number of deals that were falsified. Fortunately, we were not paying commission up front, so it just didn't. He had his own issues back at home. One of our other consultants, I mean, it's just nuts. We had a client meeting. It was probably one of the most important client meetings. We invited the client on site. One of our senior consultants, who's meant to be leading the meeting, went out the night before with his girlfriend to celebrate his birthday. Came in with handcuffs on because he couldn't, basically they'd lost the key, and I had to escort him to the local fire station to get them to cut him out of the handcuffs. I mean, honestly, Sean, one day I probably will write a book on it. And look, the characters that the people I'm talking about are great people, right?
Yeah,
and at the time, probably one of the most stressful times in my life, because I'm trying to do everything and I wasn't doing it particularly well. I think I was doing well on the client side, but on the people side.
So at this point now, you didn't have your colleagues. You were looking after it all.
I was looking after it all. I had support, but I was looking after it all. And look, I loved it at the time, but you know, it's tough. And I look back on what would I have done differently. Well, I wouldn't have run it for a start. I would have pulled in someone who just had it on control, so I could have done the bit that I'm passionate about and I love. And secondly, I would have come into London with a huge amount of investment. We didn't. We tried to. We grew it organically. The problem was we were attracting some great people who loved our story, but you know, the turnaround on people was just, you know, immense. As soon as people were starting, they were being headhunted out for another 10, 15K more on their base salary. And it was just an explosive time in the city where the tech banking market was flying. And of course, that's what we piggybacked in on. But that was our challenge, retaining good people. You know, I really enjoyed working with everyone we recruited in London. But
how did that change then? When did it come to an end? Or
when the banking space crashed at sort of it was post 2010. I remember we were working with, as I said, 4 or 5 of the top banks, and that was all lockdown relationships on contract, and we'd probably be on a daily basis 5 to 10 contract recruitment jobs, brand new a day, that were just coming in. And in that space, it was really rat race recruitment. It really opened my eyes up to how recruitment
That's how
really
I used to work, though. Like,
yeah, I mean,
I'd work on. So we had a lot of small clients, but we'd won a few big accounts, and you know, they just released 3 contract roles at 5 p.m. on a Friday, and you'd be like, "I'm about to."
You couldn't go home.
You're about to leave, and you're like, "Fucking no chance."
Yeah.
And I think that was probably one of the things I think burnt me out a bit. I was a really big biller in contract, but I never saw a different side of recruitment other than fast, ridiculous pace. And now I look at what I do. I think I probably would have been better maybe over a career in a more of like a perm market or something where I could take a bit more time on things. I was a lunatic. I was good at it, but I'm not sure I enjoyed it so much after a bit.
I was shocked. I mean, and I sort of had to let our head of banking division do his thing. He was like, look, this is what we're going to do, right? We're going to hire 10 grads. And when a role comes in, 3 grads will work the role simultaneously. I'm like, you what? Really? Trust me, they need to do this. And as soon as the role comes in, if we've not got the candidates within the first hour, forget it. Like, okay, all right. So I was shocked. And we did it. We nailed it. We had some great people, and as I said, the leader of that area knows the space well, and it was all about building relationships with hiring managers and locking it down. But unfortunately, again, what goes up comes down. The banking market basically sort of post, I think it's 2011, 12. There was basically a big hit in the banking space, and as quickly as these contract roles were coming in, they just dried up. And we had a team of 12, 13 people working in that one area. And within 2 weeks, we had to let the whole lot go. And it was terrible. And then we had, you know, remaining probably another 12 or 13 people, and we'd let half the company go, and morale was low. And then I was spending more of my time trying to pick people up, and then they were just getting picked out by other recruitment companies. And to the point we got down to about 8 people. And then I took the decision, actually, I think we need to shut this thing down, and I'll start supporting the HQ back in Milton Keynes. And that's when we took the decision.
What year was that then?
2014, I think 14. It was.
How does that feel? You know, going from I'm the founder of the London office. I've gone out. Did you move to London as well?
Yeah. So my wife and I moved. My wife had at the time she was in journalism, so it was good for her. So we made the conscious decision to move into the city. We had our own life there, friends, and I just knew this thing. It was running out of road. We couldn't get investment. Milton Keynes was still doing really well, and actually it came to that sort of realization, which is, do I just want this stress anymore? Do I really want this? But I loved the London life, and I still wanted to hang on to it, but not at the expense of my own well-being. Because it massively took its toll on me. You know, I was. At the time, I walked into London relatively sound, grounded. I knew myself. And I remember having my first panic attack in 2013. I didn't know what it was. I thought I was going to die. We were doing a presentation to a client, and I actually literally had to stop and ask my colleague to carry on the presentation. And I left the office. And it was quite harrowing. So I was carrying all this anyway, thinking, as much as I want this dream and I want to create what we've set out to do, I can't do it at the expense of my own life.
So is it just the fact that the market was declining or was there something else?
Well, no, the banking market that was shattered. That had been annihilated. Well, the tech into banking, certainly. But our tech business was growing. That was still going. So Milton Keynes, we were still growing year on year, and we were at the pure tech play stuff. So it was a bit of an easier decision to make, because it wasn't as if I needed to hold on to London because I had nothing to go to. And then the way the business evolved, we bought our MD out, and then there was just two of us. So it was myself and a guy called David Freeman, and we are still the original founders of Provide, and David is the MD of the business. And we had a meeting, and we decided to wind London up. And then David was like, "Well, look, come on, let's just work on Milton Keynes. You can work from London, you can do it virtually, and you can stay in London, but let's grow Milton Keynes out." So that's what we decided to do.
Did you feel like, take us? Well, how did you close it? Like, did you have to sit and let people go and say, like, this is no way?
Yeah. We had to close it. We had to have, the whole exit meetings, and there were the core team that we had at the end were really gutted, because they've been with me from the start. And it was a sad week. I remember that it was a whole week. I hated it, because each day I was going in, letting more people go, and people knew what was coming, right? And yeah, for me, those were dark times. They were really dark times, and it was my baby. Finally, I'd got to really prove to myself that it wasn't just about building a desk that did 300-400K a year. It was about building a brand new business, and we got there. It was looking really good, but as at its height, as I said, we were in the 20s head count. We were turning over nearly as much as Milton Keynes, and Milton Keynes had been going for 8 years, and in 2 years we were doing nearly, because we got such great contractor momentum in the banking space. As we know, contractors in the banking space, obviously, we were doing contract deals in Milton Keynes for sort of £400 to £600 a day. Well, in banking, it's up to, some of our candidates were being paid $2,000, $3,000 a day. So it's a complete game changer. Yeah. But it comes with its cost. It comes with a price as well.
So you say you panic attacks, you close it down. How long did you stay in London for?
So we did another. So I did a year in London, and I was
working virtually,
working remotely. But I was useless at that. I just couldn't get. I needed an office. The remote working then. It was nowhere near where it is now, and even now I struggle. I'm in the office. I'm in the office 4 days a week. I do 1 day a week at home, and I love it. But I just long to be in here. Basically, I'm just that kind of character. So I struggled basically with the virtual piece, and then my wife and I took the decision. We wanted to settle down. We were talking about children, and unless you've got, for us, stacks of cash in London, it's not happening raising kids, and we just didn't want to do that. And where we're from a village outside Milton Keynes. What we basically could buy in this village for what we were looking at in London, it's not even comparison. There's no comparison. So we took the decision to move back, and then we started working on Milton Keynes. Basically, my wife gave up her career in the city. She became a yoga teacher, which is what she wanted to do anyway, and you can do that anywhere. So that worked for her. And then it was focus on the HQ in Milton Keynes, and let's grow it out, basically.
Okay, so that takes us to what? 5 or 6 years ago. I'm just mindful of time.
Yeah. 5 6 years ago.
How has it evolved then? So where and your role? How did your role keep evolving to where it's got to?
So the interesting part of the story is that, and this is where we made the mistake. So we had 25 people, I think, around that point. And we knew that basically I was one of very few that could bring in big accounts that we could scale around. And what we tried to do was take it to the next step, which is, as opposed to building these accounts from the ground up, me going in, doing placements, winning hearts and minds, winning C-level people over, and then saying, right, come on, why don't we take your recruitment on as your recruitment partner? We decided to basically productize it and say, well, let's go after the MSPs and the RPOs, right? We can do this. Bit of content, glossy brochures, case studies, and we had a lot of them then. By that point, I'd had probably 12 to 15 decent clients where we'd build millions of pounds with, where we'd lock down recruitment with them, we'd push the competition out. And but I'd done it from the ground up, Sean. It wasn't an overnight thing. You know,
No.
some of these relationships took years to build.
Yeah.
But let's productize it. Let's do it. So then we took this new mandate out to market, which is what I was leading. And it's tough, right? Because you've got proven RPO providers out there. You got Alexander Mann, you got Resource Solutions. They've been around a long time. They've got their cost ratios right. They've got all of the content, and we were going up against them as the new kids on the block, and we struggled. Yeah. And we really struggled because we're going into quite big environments, unknown to people, an unknown entity saying, well, look, you know, we can take on your 250 hires a year. We've done it for these clients, but unless you've got proper relationships or you've got more compelling case studies and information, which we didn't have, and it's just that simple. It's just it was a no-go for us. So I spent a couple of years trying to do that. Now, don't get me wrong, we still won some big accounts, but we didn't get it to where we wanted to go. But I came off the tools and I was in this sort of BD role, pure BD, go out there, win customers. And it was okay, but it just wasn't my best moment. I wasn't achieving what I wanted to achieve. And then I started to lose momentum. And if I'm honest, interest in it. You know, I started to fall out of love with it a bit because it was just like, I'm lost in it. I'm having these conversations. I'm trying to bring these customers in, but I've got nothing. I can't connect with them because I haven't done recruitment for them. And that was the disconnect. And that's when TXM came along. Because at that point we were very much still focused on, we don't want it to be a lifestyle business. We want an event.
So when you've always said that, you've always kind of known at some point you want to sell it or have an event where people come in, investment, whatever. Yeah, absolutely. And at that time we had a company who approached us to say, look, we're building this sort of, they called it it was a bit of like a layer cake model where we're just going to basically acquire a load of recruitment business, stack them in, go to a PE and say, right, we've got a 20 million pounds EBITDA figure on this, sell it to us for a multiple of 10 and you'll get a much higher multiple on what Provide's worth. This is great, right? Hold on, we got it now, we've cracked it. So we went down to see these guys in London and it was terrible. It was awful. We just got a really bad feeling about it. They were stacking us, they were going to lump us in with a number of other very similar tech businesses. There was so much conflict of interest. We could see internally that, hold on a minute, these other recruitment businesses are doing the same stuff as us. So how's it going to work? I don't get it. And it just didn't feel right. And we didn't have a good meeting. And at the time, we were talking to TXM because TXM basically wanted to buy a brand off us that we owned, but they were in the market that we weren't. So it was a medical brand that Provide owned. Long story. I won't go into detail. And my business partner at the time, David, met Kieran, who was the CEO. And we were obviously very hesitant about somebody taking our brand on, but he wanted to have a conversation with us, and then the rest is history. But we soon realized actually that there was a lot going on in TXM, and the conversation started growing, and they were talking sort of in the very early stages about this kind of model, but in a different way. But actually what happened, they loved our story. I think they invested in myself and David, and the two founders invested in us. So they took a stake in Provide and basically supported us. So we didn't actually go into group, but we were part owned by them. And we came in as their niche technology supplier to complement the verticals that they working. And their verticals have been traditional sort of blue collar, white collar engineering. So they're really heavy in automotive, utilities. Rail is a massive area and concern for them, construction. But they had a tech business, but we were complementary to that. And we were brought in to sort of, bolster that side up. And that's then when the story really starts unwinding, because obviously TXM, just a different entity. This is a group business now that's 250 million turnover. It's got 11 recruitment businesses now in situ as a group holding, and we are one of them now. And that business is growing. They're growing through acquisitions. But the nice setup with TXM's model is, one, I really like the people who are right at the top in group. They're good friends. We go out for beers with them. I enjoy their company. I trust them. But secondly,
they're working towards an event, which is what I've identified with, and that's where we want to take Provide. So with the setup we have with them is that we are now officially into their group. We have central services that support us. So we've got a HR team now who can support us through thick and thin. I'm not sure about the handcuffs situation.
Yeah, check that one this week. Let me know.
Absolutely. But we've got HR services, we've got IT services. But the big thing for me is shareholder value. So, I had a big stake in Provide, which is a small company. And there's two things that you realize as a recruitment business owner is that actually the value of the shares is nothing unless you've got someone who wants to buy it. No. And I think that the reality for us was before we signed the deal with TXM, we were looking at the potential of actually, okay, if we sell this, how are we going to do it? And we soon realized that unless you're going to scale the business, you've got a lot of investment. There's you've got a PE or a VC behind you to do it. There aren't many exit strategies. There aren't many options to actually sell a recruitment business because it's not that they're not desirable, but there aren't many people in the market saying, I want to buy a tech recruitment business for, 10 to 15 million turnover. It's like, well, who does? TXM bought us into the group, and now there is a plan to have an event, probably not a trade sale, but it will be some sort of sale in the future. Timescales to be confirmed, but now I have something to hold on to. Now there's light at the end of the tunnel. Now the 20 years of absolute blood, sweat, and guts could eventually cash out, and whether I'll be sat with you in my Speedos in Dubai on a beach somewhere, who knows, right? But
I'm not doing it based on cashing out. Just time out for me.
Well, time out, but you know what I mean. I think it's not. Yes, of course. Look, I'd be a liar to say it is about a cash out for me because I've worked so hard all my life. And I know this podcast is about sort of what do I do outside and family time. But at the moment, if I'm being brutally honest with you, Sean, I'm sacrificing everything for this.
Well, do you know what? But just to stop there, that's a good point. Like this show is actually it's funny because it's the RAG stands for Recruitment Agency Growth. Now, that could mean anything. I don't. Yeah. That does not mean everyone has to exit and make millions. It doesn't mean, it could be whatever it is. I don't give a shit what it is. I'm passionate about speaking to business owners about how they've done what they've done, whatever it is. What I love about you is you've been very honest about the fact that certain elements have gone wrong. You're not the right guy for certain. I reckon a lot of founders are quite ego driven and it's very hard to let go. And I don't actually manage much in my marketing agency anymore. My business partner, Amma, does. And he actually told me in April last year, you're getting in the way. Like, you're not adding that much value. You're so obsessed with this coaching business. Go and fucking do it kind of thing. Leave me to it.
Yeah.
And it was actually like, because I was the brains of it all. It was a real hit to my ego for a bit that I didn't want it to work without me. But then when I was like, actually, this could work without, and I got my head around. Now I have like maximum 1 hour a week with the business, if that. I barely don't even have that, and it's running well. So, but not many people would do what you've done and make those shifts. Now you've mentioned you've gone into a big brand, 250 million turnover. You've gone from owning your own shit for 20 years to now effectively reporting into someone.
Yeah.
Before we get into the bit about your family, because I want to touch on that, what the hell does that feel like? Because that's the bit that puts me off with an investor, if I'm honest. I don't ever want someone telling me what to do again.
Do you know what? Honestly speaking, it feels really good. And it feels really good because I go back to default of what I'm saying about the TXM Group. And look, I'm not pitching, this podcast isn't about them, but they're good people. The founders are great. They are supporting us through thick and thin. We've had some terrible months. We've had months where we've had no cash. They've not even asked questions. They've stepped up for us. They've supported us. What TXM are doing is giving me the ticket to get to the end of this. And for me, that's what I'm driven. And it doesn't really come at a huge cost. Yes, I have to report. We report to a board, but that board are consultative. They're there to help us grow. They are the grey hair we never had. If I look at the history of, yeah. But is that real or is that?
No, mine is real. Did you actually keep this up?
Yeah, you're looking good actually. Yeah, at least you've got the fringe line. Mine's still going backwards. But I think TXM for us have been great because they've given us experience. Look, they're a proven business, right? They grew this thing organically. They're one of very few outside of the bedroom recruitment story who've said, right, we're building a business now in the hundreds of millions. And I think that hat off to them. There's a good team there. They're consultative. They're driving shareholder value for me. They're acquiring more businesses that complement us as a team. I've now got global reach. I can talk to any client and wholeheartedly tell them I can recruit in APAC. I can now recruit in Central Europe locally.
Yeah.
We've got a division in the Middle East as well. So there's so much more upside than getting tangled up with, I've now got a boss that I need to report to, because that's just not the environment at TXM. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's not that kind of environment. And the companies that they're bringing into group are fantastic, and it really contrary to this previous model that we were going to sign up to, where there's conflict of interest. None of us are doing the same thing. We are the tech recruiter in the UK. You've then got a tech recruiter who is Central Europe. We've then got tech in the States. We've got tech in APAC. And we're all starting to work.
Are you all under your own brands, though, rather than all being TXM, or is that part of a strategy too?
We are under the TXM Group, but we retain our brand because the brand is key. It's the central DNA. And I don't want to lose Provide's brand. And actually, it was them who said, when we build this model, you're not going to lose your brand. You won't lose your culture, your DNA, because we've acquired you for that. We're not going to start to dilute all of that. And again, that was a massive win for us, because we're proud of what we've achieved at Provide. And the companies are different, but they all do work. So for me now, having that global reach, having a light at the end of the tunnel, being able to drive real shareholder value. Don't get me wrong, I've got a much smaller stake, but I've got a stake of £250 million turnover business now. This is serious. And I'm in contact with the group CEO and all of the team, and it's totally transparent. There's no hidden agenda. We're on the same journey. We're signing up now to a timescale, and for me, I've fallen back in love with recruitment, Sean. I know this sounds a bit mushy, but I've got a new lease of life. They've kept my role simple again. They've supported me to go and do what I'm really good at. I'm bringing in my clients. I'm going back to recruitment. As I said, I'm in the office. I work long hours, but I love what I do. My wife understands that. I still get time to see my kids, but we can talk about that in a minute and how I plan around that. But I love what I do again. And that's, for me, TXM have given that back to me.
You've had moments where you've not loved it then?
Oh, absolutely. Oh my God. Yeah. Last year was a dark year for me, because again, we were going through a place where I was trying to get my role sorted. And if I'm brutally honest with myself, and again, this came out when I was talking to one of the founders at TXM, I just didn't know what my purpose was. I just couldn't get it right. And I just keep going back to default, which is, at the end of the day, and I'm not arrogant about it, I am really good at recruitment. I'm bloody good. I work well with my clients. I love what I do. I love scaling businesses. I'm a lot more than just chasing a deal, because I've grown up. It's not the days of £20,000 a month. Let's shut up shop and go to Prague. Great memory. We're a lot more mature as a business. We are about helping clients and scaling them. And that's the bit I get up early in the morning for. And I'm working now with some really interesting businesses. I'm working with pre-Series A all the way up to FTSE 100 FTSE 100 businesses. And they've all got the same problems. And I know I can solve them. And TXM have all they've done is steer me in the right direction. They've given me a bit of support. You've met some of the team anyway. We've got a great L&D team. And I've got that support around me now to just re-clarify what I'm all about and set me off in the right direction. And the great thing, just finally, about our business is we've also now got the opportunity to really partner up with some major businesses that they work with and take our tech digital footprint into those companies. And that's where it's really paying off for us.
Yeah. Wow. So when it comes to your life, then, you just said, you're sacrificing a lot. Your wife's very supportive. Tell us, you've got children. Tell us a bit more about the family and what your setup looks like.
So wife and two young children, a daughter who's 3 and a son who's 5. So, these are very precious times, as you well know. I love being a father. It's probably alongside owning a great business and working with the likes of TXM, being a father to me has massively changed me as an individual. It's certainly knocked off the illusions of, just being self-centered and selfish about me. Now I've got to take care of these 2 little individuals who are just starting out, and I love it. Right. I genuinely have taken to it really well. And I love spending time with my children and the wife, of course. It's brilliant. We're a great unit. But again, in the spirit of just being honest with you, I've had to prioritize. I've got to prioritize this next couple of years. It has to take priority for me because I'm working now towards the greater good of something where if it works, I get the opportunity to step out of something and have actually options to look at what I do next. And those options, and obviously one of the first options on the cards hopefully is to get back time so that I can really spend quality time with my family and obviously enjoy their development, and obviously, you know, and
what does that look like then in terms of prioritizing work at the minute? What does a day or a week or a month genuinely look like? What's changed?
Okay, so so for me, 6:30 start, feed the kids in the morning, you know, obviously kiss them goodbye, send one off to school, the other one goes to nursery, or she's staying back with the wife, leave the house just after 7. I'm in the office at 7:30 to 7:45, and I will work until 7 o'clock at night on average, sometimes later. Get home.
Kids are in bed.
Well, if I can get home at 7, they're not in bed. They're just going to bed. Do the bedtime thing with the children. That's the big thing for me. It's really important I do bedtime if I can. So do bedtime with the children, and then it's dinner, and then I'm probably back on the tools if I'm doing some sort of senior headcount campaign, because, you know, recruitment never sleeps, as they say. It doesn't. And for me, even with the world we live in now, around this whole piece around sort of, you know, the virtual environment and electronic messaging, it's all about getting on the phones. It's all about speaking to people outside of hours. Even with people working at home, there was this era where you could get hold of people, and it was dead easy. When we had COVID, you know, our recruiters it was dead easy just to talk to people, but people are in routines now. And even when they're working at home, you can't get hold of them. So again, late at night, I'm still talking to people. I'm still working with my clients. You know, I've got WhatsApp groups with some of the big clients that I work with about how we're looking to scale some of their businesses and how we're looking to change things. And it just doesn't stop. And I'm doing it because of the end goal, but I also am doing it because I do genuinely love it. I really enjoy it. I really get a kick out of watching some of these companies change and grow.
Amazing. Well, I've got a few questions. Obviously, in light of current news, I don't want to go into too much about it because I just honestly, like, I can't keep reading the news about Russia and Ukraine. But
yeah,
what impact have you seen any impact as a business yet? Are you expecting an impact?
Not yet. So the only direct impact that I'm hearing about as it stands at the moment, and it is early days, but look, you're right. I mean, the atrocities are just terrible, and I am expecting that this could change for us. The impact that we're seeing at the moment is with some of the clients that we're working with. So, you know, in the tech space, a lot of offshoring and outsourcing goes to Eastern European countries, and Ukraine is top of the list. There's some amazing devs out there. So some of the clients we're working at the moment have had to cut their ties with these dev teams, or we're hearing stories that dev teams are working at ridiculous hours. You know, they'll be working at 3 a.m. when they can get some clarity or rest from the shelling that's going on around them, and it's literally that bad. So yes, we're seeing the immediate impact. Is it having an effect on us as a business at the moment? No. Are our clients anticipating that, you know, this potentially could tip into a recession? And no, but yeah, I wait with bated breath on that one, Sean.
Yeah, I think the biggest concern is the knock-on impact of isolating Russia economically. Like what? Because it will. Like the sanctions to Russia will come back to us, and it's
100%
in so many directions. Russia will be, you know, they'll be connected to every industry in so many ways. It's one of, you know, how fast will that impact us? I'm not sure. I just don't want to treat it like at the beginning of COVID when I'll be honest, I did an episode where I was totally like blasé, thinking it'll last about 2 weeks and you know, 2 years. But it's crazy how, you know, it felt like the day that COVID ended officially in the UK in terms of all the restrictions, and it genuinely does feel like people are moving on from it right now.
Yeah. Well,
the fucking war kicks off on the exact same week, and it's like it's just replaced it, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, it has. And we've gone through 2 recessions, 2 major recessions. We've gone through the banking crash. We've been here before. Look, I know there's going to be other recruiters out there that probably listen to the podcast who are not in the tech space, and I feel really fortunate that we are, because for me, I always, you know, go back to what I say about technology. It's quite resilient. You know, where other markets crash quite quickly and they crash, the tech space just seems to continue even when we are in the midst of a recession, because it's the one area that businesses want to carry on investing in. Because if they don't, they lose market share, competition. They're not competitive in their own space. So I'm not saying I'm not clearly insinuating that it's going to be so resilient that we're not going to see any effects, because I'm anticipating that there will be. But at the moment, no. Right. I think the worst thing we can do, as you say, is start running around thinking, it's the end of the world. Clearly for us, we've just got to keep running and going as we go. And that's all I'm focused on at the moment. Yeah. But yeah, I anticipate that there's going to be clearly some impacts for us.
Such a sad time. I think for me, 100%. I'm just very conscious of how much I'm reading and not reading. I'm not ignoring it, but I'm not reading. When I was on holiday, I was moments where I just found myself constantly reading the news, and I'm like, it's not good for the brain. Like you can consume a bit each day, but you've got to move on with it. I've seen a post on LinkedIn saying, look, yes, you should still promote your companies. You should still talk about normal life, because mortgage companies still, we still need to make money. We can't just talk about like what's going on is incredible, but I'll keep raising the awareness, but there still has to be other things we talk about. Otherwise, everything stops, and we can't afford that.
Well, I think, and look, going back to the COVID, I remember when Boris locked us down in COVID, and we had 60 open vacancies that went down to nearly 6 within 2 weeks, and we genuinely thought we could lose the business. And again, credit where credit's due, TXM supported us during that time. It's not a selfish thing. We have to keep going. I think what we're looking at doing here is how can we support that crisis outside with, charitable donations and doing stuff. But we've got to keep the wheels turning, because we've got 20 plus people in here who will all rely on us.
Exactly.
For their own livelihoods. So again, and I agree with you. I mean, I got into a habit of, as soon as I got home at night, Sky News on, what's going on out in Ukraine, and it takes it out of you. I mean, the dilemma we've got going on at the moment is trying to explain to my 5-year-old about all of this, because he's asking questions at the moment, and I've read a few pieces of content online about how you depict this and stuff, and watching him trying to digest this, and how much information do I give him, and it's tough. I mean, look, you can't ignore it, but I think it's important for the sanity of everybody and to keep going, that you have to keep pushing forward, because if we all come to a standstill, it's going to be even worse.
Exactly. Well, Stuart, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's you know what? Darren Ravella's commented saying, what an awesome person to share the ups and downs. Kudos to Stuart. Cheers, Darren. You have given us a really honest, often vulnerable account of what it's like. I'm super excited for you. I really hope it all works out, and I'm sure it will. I've met the guys at TXM. I know you're in great company. If anyone does want to reach out, if there's anyone listening that thinks either they're about to start a recruitment company and they just want to learn, pick your brains, or someone who's perhaps in the thick of it and they're not enjoying it and they've been through those panic attacks or moments where they're not sure, would you be open to someone just reaching out and giving you a quick
100%? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I've got 20 years of it, so the least I can do is try and give back, right? So yeah, 100%.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, anyone who wants to talk, LinkedIn is the place. I'll make sure you're tagged in everything that we do.
Yeah.
Stuart, what I'll make sure is we check back in on you and the guys, and perhaps get some of the TXM guys involved next time.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be pleased.
To ensure that, what I like to do is interview people and see a year later or down the line, 2 years later, whether or not, things are happening and why. And if not, let's talk about it. If they are, happy days. So Stuart, I want to say thank you. And anybody that's listening, please do reach out to Stuart. And I am sure you will get another honest account from him and some support. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Sean.
Thank you, as always, for listening to today's show. I truly hope that you got value from it. That's the only reason I take time every week, is to ensure that my audience, future and existing recruitment owners, are learning from each other to make this industry that I love so much stronger. Today's episode was brought to you by Hoxo Media. I am the CEO and founder of Hoxo Media, and we are the world's leading content marketing and personal branding agency for recruitment businesses specifically. So we are working with over 200 agencies and 2,000 recruiters right now, both managing the brands, producing content, building written, video, podcast content for niche recruitment agencies all over the world, as well as coaching at a desk level
individual recruiters in your businesses how to be better on LinkedIn. That's how to brand themselves. That's how to produce content. That's how to use the opportunity on LinkedIn to get traffic to their profiles and turn that into business. We're coaching people all over the world every single day. If any of that sounds of interest, please do visit www.hoxomedia.com or drop me, Sean Anderson, a personal message on LinkedIn. I would love to talk to you. Tune in again next week. That's live on LinkedIn, or you can catch the show on the following Monday from 6 a.m. on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'll see you soon.